So what's it really like to hunt bourbon at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival? Let me take you behind the scenes. Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Bourbon Hutch. Thanks so much for joining me on this journey through the world of whiskey. So about 2.5 weeks ago, as of the filming of this video, I had the great privilege of going down to the Kentucky Bourbon Festival in Bardstown, Kentucky. This was actually my third straight year going down to the festival. And I'll tell you, in that time, I feel like I've learned a lot about how to actually maximize your experience while you're down there. So would love to take you through kind of my experience there. I got footage mostly just from the Saturday. I was down there Friday, Saturday, a little bit of Sunday morning in the area, but really we'll focus on Saturday and kind of what a day at the festival looks like and what a day looks like when you're down in Bardstown for all the events and things that are going on around the festival as well. So again, I do feel like it's been a learning experience for me to kind of figure out how to actually make the most of your time. The first year I went, I only went on Sunday. Then the next year went Friday and Saturday, but learned a lot from that experience. And then this year I feel like I was able to come away with some awesome bottles and some new experiences from the festival, which is awesome. So what I'm going to do is just walk you through some of the footage I got and we'll dive in. All right, so the first thing I want to note is just that Bardstown is a beautiful place to visit. If you ever get the opportunity to go down to the urban capital of the world, I do highly recommend it, even if it's not for the festival weekend. You're probably going to get to see a lot of distilleries. If you're a bourbon fan, it is really one of those bucket list places to try to get to, and I've always enjoyed pretty much every trip I take down there. Okay, so my day actually began at Cox Creek location for Four Roses. They were releasing their limited edition small batch bourbon. There were a ton of people at both this location and Lawrenceburg, but it was pretty well run, and I did come away with a great bottle. Yep, that's right. I got my hands on the Four Roses limited edition small batch bottle for 2024. This is a blend of 12 to 20 year bourbons. It did cost me a pretty penny at $220, more than $230 out the door. Four Roses, they did a really good job running the event. Everybody got wristbands, and honestly, there were enough wristbands for people who were even showing up at like 6 or 7 a.m., which isn't an ungodly hour. So was lucky enough to grab one. Review will be coming soon, but this kicked off my Saturday in a great way and is one of the more special bottles I've ever gotten my hands on, and that is part of going down to the festival. Distilleries may be releasing stuff or doing special things in honor of the festival, and Four Roses just lined their release up in a way that made it possible for me to grab one, which was awesome. Okay, so one of the things I do recommend is getting a big breakfast before you go into your day at the festival. We went to Stephen Foster, and it has a great buffet, by the way, so highly recommend. Okay, so this is me walking down the line to get into the festival. We arrived on Saturday, I would say about an hour and a half early, which is pretty significant. Definitely, we weren't the first people there. As you can see, this thing goes on forever, all the way around the corner. And honestly, by all that was said and done, we were kind of middle of the pack. I do want to point out on the right side here, you've got all these food trucks. So that's really what your lunch or snack options are. There's a couple that are also more associated with and kind of linked to the festival inside, but the food truck options are great. You can always pop out, pop back in with your wristband, no big deal. So yeah, you can see this line, it just keeps going around the corner. But honestly, one of the best things about this entire festival is the number of people you get to meet and chat with. You're going to be standing in lines. That's going to happen. My, favorite memories of the festival often are just chatting people up in the line and saying, hey, where are you from? What are you sipping on? What have you enjoyed the most? I love to ask people what they've found the most surprising throughout the festival, and you always get some good answers. So, yep, made our way to the very back of the line. I don't know how many people were in front of us, but again, it was kind of middle of the pack. Okay, so this is entering into the festival. You get a wristband, like I said, and you just scan it on these cool little scanners. You just place it down. They do have this wonderful entrance with all the barrels. That's really pretty, and makes you feel like you're walking into something kind of epic. This is basically a bourbon lover's dream, a paradise, if you will. Then you enter in, and so on your left is all the major big boy distilleries. And so you can get a lot of their standard things and taste those. And then over on the right is all of the craft distilleries. So might be turning the camera here in a second. There you go. And you can see into that little cove with more shade and trees is all the craft distilleries, which is awesome. Honestly, it's not a bad way to kind of split your days of going to the big boys and then going to the craft distilleries the other day. So when you do enter, you get a free Glencairn, and you're going to want to pick that up so you can taste. And then they have some like magazines and stuff and agendas to let you know what's going on. Okay, so one of the things I wanted to highlight, especially from this year, we're starting basically all the way at the back of the festival here. And this is the line for the Heaven Hill booth. Basically, they have a little house there, and they sell their own whiskey. Now, last year I went and I was able to get the Elijah Craig Barrel Proof C923. So I thought maybe there was an Elijah Craig release this year. Maybe it was the C924. No, Heaven Hill definitely stepped it up, and they were releasing Old Fitz 13 on Friday, and then Heaven Hill 18 and Parker's on Saturday. So I did get extremely lucky, and I was able to get an Old Fitz 13 on Friday. Didn't get footage of that, but did show off that line. It was pretty crazy. I, again, was probably middle of the pack in that line. They had a ton of this stuff ready to go and to be sold. So my buddy Joe and I, who were down there together, we actually already did a review of this bottle if you haven't seen it. And we stayed in that line, I'd say about an hour and a half-ish. And we were able to get one. We were told that we were in the last like 60-ish bottles. They made an announcement saying they only had about 60 left right when we left Heaven Hill's booth. So really, really lucky. And again, you pair this with the Four Roses, and I was one happy camper coming away from this festival with some of the most special bourbon I've ever gotten. This bottle, the Old Fitz, was $230, and this bottle, the Four Roses, was $220, like I mentioned. So I had already spent basically what I was considering my budget for the weekend on these two major bottles, but was super happy to add both of them to the collection. Okay, so now we're getting into really the main attraction of the festival, which is tasting all this whiskey. Got to go to Old Forester and taste Birthday Bourbon 2023. Pretty good, but didn't actually wow me. Now what did wow me was Chicken Cock. I actually got to go here, didn't have much experience with Chicken Cock. They gave us a 15-year bourbon they had, and it was awesome. Some other releases from them were really, really good. Again, I didn't know much about them, so getting to dive in like that was a big part of, enjoying the festival. So then, stand in line for Rabbit Hole. This year there were bigger lines for pretty much every distillery than in previous years. Barton 1792, Jim Beam. You've got this atrium here where you've got a throughway and a lot of the major distilleries, and you can kind of access all of them within a few steps. That was my buddy Joe there. And that was Woodford. Woodford, we got to go over and taste their double oaked. That was actually one of the highlights of the festival. Angel's Envy here was releasing their triple oak. Did get to try it. It was quite good. Michter's, oh man, probably my favorite booth at the whole festival. They were giving away their barrel strength, letting you taste it, their toasted bourbon, and I think I went back to the barrel strength rye at least 6 times. And that's why you need water. You gotta get the water in, you gotta get these breaks in. My biggest recommendation is stay hydrated, stay fueled up. So Augusta, now we're over on the craft side. You got Augusta, Nulu, Wenzel, like all these distilleries that maybe you've always wondered if you should buy a bottle or try it. When you try it, you get to see how good is it actually. Augusta, huge spotlight. These guys are doing great stuff. Their 8-year stuff was great. Last year, I think I even got to taste a 13-year something, and it was awesome. Nulu always kills it. They've always got toasted. They've got different finishes that they're showing off. Tried this maple finished one, and it was really, really potent and powerful. So just good whiskey all around. So this is actually the Evergreen Liquors tent. So if you go in there, they're different craft distilleries, but then there's bottle sales along the back of the tent as well. And they had a couple of special things, but nothing much. Sort of like an Old Forester 117 series level stuff. Nothing crazy though. 15 stars. I had never even really encountered this brand, and they had so much whiskey for us to taste, and they were really generous. All right, so this was one of the coolest highlights of the entire festival. This booth here was basically having you sign up for the Booze app, and then you got to potentially taste one of these dusty whiskeys or the Russell's 15. So that's what we did. We ended up tasting the Russell's 15 because, you know, we had heard all the hype and we wanted to taste that over some of the stuff from, you know, the dusty years. Just needed to know if the Russell's 15 was really as good as everybody is saying, and honestly can confirm it was pretty dang good. Cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers,
Russell's
gentlemen.
15.
Oh my mother of God.
Good stuff. Whoa.
Well,
That dethroned President's Choice.
that's pretty special.
Wow.
Russell's 15, folks. Delicious. Cherry bomb.
Fantastic.
Definitely dethroned President's Choice. Good option.
Bourbon of the weekend.
Thank you.
Yeah, this.
We're chatting with people.
I think it's pretty dang good. We've tasted a lot of stuff this weekend, and this is right at the top of the list. Cheers.
This is top 3.
Okay, so after the festival was over, Russell's 15 was then on my radar to make sure I went out and grabbed if I got the chance. And lo and behold, just a couple of days later, really about a week later, I saw the local Kroger had done a kind of pop-up drop, was able to pop over there and grab this bottle. So talk about lucky, but again, it's that opportunity to taste it at the festival that I was like, oh, that is one that if I get the chance, even if it's $250, I'm going to pull the trigger. So this didn't come from the festival, but the confidence to go out and buy it and to make it a, you know, top of the list one to hunt came from getting to taste it at the festival. Okay, so one of the coolest features of the festival is that you get to go into this museum that shows off all this old whiskey, basically the story of lots of different whiskeys and lots of different brands. So you walk in, it's also a great opportunity to get out of the heat and stand in some air conditioning for a bit. So use it as an opportunity to recharge for sure and just to see some cool stuff. They do this auction up on the top floor. We just missed it, seeing it. Not that we were going to buy anything, but you can go up to the auction and just watch them sell some of this really old, crazy whiskey, I'm sure. Speaking of crazy old whiskey, look at all this. I mean, there's bottles from history that you get to see and check out. I think that is a ton of fun, and, you know, again, it kind of adds the history element to the whole journey. All right, here we are at Four Roses. I just wanted to point out that this pharmacy thing they have on the right side there is actually an opportunity to taste some of their limited edition small batches. So if you know what you're doing, go over there and get your little prescription. They kind of disguise it, but it's good. Bardstown had a big line all weekend, and for good reason. They make some of the best stuff. So does Green River. They're attached at the hip. They're right across from each other because they're making some of the best stuff. Barrel, by far, the most extensive lineup in the whole festival. Look at this, just the sheer number of bottles you can potentially taste. This is the most dangerous booth at the festival too, because you walk away feeling it, that's for sure. Okay, so once you're done at your favorite booths, you've tasted everything that you wanted to taste from, I believe it was 62 distilleries there this year. You depart the festival as we are here. It ends at 6 p.m. each day, so you can't stay super late. It's still light out. I think all good moves because most people are feeling a little inebriated at this point. You can always stop at a food truck and get yourself some stuff. But again, I just want to say, this festival is an opportunity to taste some amazing whiskey from some amazing distilleries that you otherwise might not be able to hunt down or would have to pay a lot to even try. And you get it all for the price of one ticket, which is awesome. All right, so my day ended at the festival, my weekend ended. Sunday morning, we were around the area, got some brunch, and then we headed out. We did make one more stop, though, on our journey home, which again is just one of the benefits of being around these hubs of bourbon. So that stop was Buffalo Trace Distillery, which, believe it or not, I had never actually been to Buffalo Trace. It was a great opportunity just to go to the grounds, check it out. It's beautiful. I will say it's kind of like the Harvard of distilleries. Like, it just looks older, it looks historic, like it's been there forever, and the community's kind of built up around it. Really cool that you get to walk around the grounds, basically unsupervised, really, but you just get to walk among the buildings, and even if you don't have a tour, you get to just check all of this out, which is awesome. Probably the sort of disappointing note, unfortunately, of the entire weekend was we got to Buffalo Trace and they were offering Weller Special Reserve. So a little disappointing there, but still had a fantastic time checking out this place. Okay, everybody, so that is a little behind the scenes look at a day at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival down in Bardstown. I always have a blast going, and I always look forward to this every year. So the 3 years I've been, I feel like I've learned a lot. The first year I only went on Sunday, felt like I had to squeeze so much in. Then I've gone on Friday and Saturday the last 2 years, been able to pace it out. This year I feel like I really blended well the hunting bourbon, but also just experiencing everything the festival has to offer you. So, whether it was getting up on Saturday morning and grabbing the Four Roses and being lucky enough to do that, learning to prioritize getting right to Heaven Hill's booth for those long lines, but waiting for a great bottle. Those are fun experiences, but ultimately I do think it's about something like tasting all these great whiskeys. That kind of led me to really hunt the Russell's 15 because I tasted it and it was awesome. But if it's a Michter's barrel strength or all of Barrel's lineup or whatever it is, you get to taste some stuff and see how it stacks up. The other thing is you get to taste all these craft distilleries and see whether or not they're up your alley. You may not know much about the brand, but you get to learn oftentimes right from the master distiller or somebody involved in the distillery who's standing right in front of you. That's just one of the best experiences. And then, of course, you get to meet people, hear their stories, hear their favorite whiskeys, and just chat with people who share this love of bourbon, which it's really mostly about community as well. So that's it, everybody. That's my recap. Do I recommend going? Absolutely. Do I recommend using it as an opportunity to hunt bourbon while you're down in Bardstown? Absolutely. This year I came away with some amazing bottles, but I would caution against making that the only goal. I do think the festival is designed to be enjoyed as a social experience where you get to taste a bunch of whiskey and hear people's stories. It's fun to hunt the bourbon, but ultimately it's more about that than anything else. All right, everybody. That's my recap. That's my review. That's my behind the scenes look. Hope you enjoyed it. If you're thinking about going to the festival next year, let me know in the comments below. Would love to start a conversation, or if you have any questions, maybe I'll be able to answer them for you, since I do have some experience going down there 3 years in a row. Till I see you guys again for another video, all I can say is keep drinking good whiskey and cheers.